All right, today we're going to talk about an idea that completely flipped the script for anyone building something new. Let's get right into it, the lean startup, and how to stop building things that nobody actually wants.
Okay, so let's just start with a really tough question, right? One that kind of haunts every entrepreneur, every project manager, every innovator out there. Why is it that after all the passion, all the money, all the sleepless nights, 9 out of 10 new ventures just fail?
Well, the answer is often kind of painfully simple. And it's not because they didn't build a good product. In fact, teams will spend months, sometimes years, perfecting their creation. The real problem? They build this flawless solution to a problem nobody actually has.
And that, right there, leads us to what you could call the startup graveyard. I mean, just picture it. It's this landscape littered with amazing ideas and super talented teams that just didn't make it. And not because they did a bad job, but because their whole approach was flawed from the very beginning.
You know, the traditional way of doing things was all about this build it and they will come fantasy. You'd write this massive business plan, go get a bunch of money, lock yourself away to build the thing, and then big launch, big marketing push. The fatal flaw in all of this, finding out what customers actually wanted was the very last thing you did. It's just a recipe for a massive amount of waste.
So, what's the alternative, right? Well, this is where Eric Ries and his book come in. He proposed this totally radical shift in thinking. Stop treating your startup like a mission to just execute a plan. Instead, treat it like a series of scientific experiments. The whole goal is to find a business model that actually works.
And this completely flips how you think about progress. It's not about how many lines of code you've written or how many features you've shipped. No. Progress is measured by how much you've learned. This is what we call validated learning. It's all about getting real, hard data from actual customers that proves you're heading in the right direction.
Okay, so how do you get that validated learning? Well, you use this powerful engine, a continuous feedback loop that basically drives every single thing you do. Honestly, this is the absolute heart of the lean startup method.
And here's that engine in all its glory. Build, measure, learn. It's so simple. First, you build a tiny, simple version of your idea. Then you measure how real people, real users, react to it. And finally, based on that data, you learn whether your core ideas were on the money or totally off base. And that learning tells you what to build next. It's fast, it's simple, and it is incredibly powerful.
Okay, let's talk about the MVP, the minimum viable product. This is so important. An MVP is not just a smaller, buggier version of your final product. Not at all. Think of it as a tool for learning. It could be a super simple website landing page, or maybe just a video explaining the idea, whatever it takes to test your biggest, riskiest assumption with the absolute least amount of work.
So every time you go through that build, measure, learn cycle, you arrive at this critical decision point. It's probably the most important decision any innovator has to make. Do you keep going on the same path, or is it time for a change?
And that decision, it really comes down to this core idea that completely redefines what it means to win. It's not about having the most money or the biggest team. In this world, like the quote says, the only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else.
So the data you collect will point you down one of two roads. If your experiments are working out, if they're confirming your big idea, you persevere. You double down, you hit the accelerator. But if the data shows your strategy just isn't working, you pivot. And listen, a pivot isn't failure. It's a smart, strategic course correction. It's about testing a new, fundamental idea about your product or your customers.
Now, to make that decision, pivot or persevere, you really need to be focused. The lean startup points to 3 main ways a business grows. You've got the sticky engine, which is all about keeping the customers you have. Then there's the viral engine, where your users basically become your sales force. And finally, the paid engine, where you spend money on ads to get customers. Knowing which engine you're trying to build helps you focus on the metrics that actually matter.
You know, it's really easy to hear all this and think, okay, that's great for a couple of people in a Silicon Valley garage. But the real power here is that these ideas are universal. This is a framework for innovation, full stop.
I mean, look at this. We're talking about massive Fortune 500 companies trying to launch new products, government agencies trying to create better services for people, even nonprofits tackling huge social problems. Basically, if you're an organization trying to do something new in a situation where you don't have all the answers, these principles can help you get there with less waste and a much better shot at success.
Of course, to make this work, especially in a big company, you really need a bit of a culture shift. It means you got to stop working in these long, drawn-out development cycles and start working in small batches. It means creating teams that are empowered to actually run experiments.
and you have to protect those experiments, maybe in what you could call an innovation sandbox, a safe place where new ideas can be tested without all the pressure of having to make money right away.
All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the key things to remember? Number 1, treat your venture like a science experiment. Number 2, use that build, measure, learn loop as your engine to learn as fast as you possibly can. 3, a pivot is not failure. It's a smart, strategic move. And finally, remember, this is a universal framework. It's for all innovators everywhere.
And that leaves us with one last question, a challenge, really, for you to take with you. Think about whatever you're working on right now, that project, that new idea. What is the single biggest, riskiest assumption you are making? And more importantly, what's the fastest, cheapest way you could start testing it, like tomorrow?